And we're back. So I know that the message that they were trying to get across is that love can be the antidote to hate. Um, but either in either on purpose or subconsciously, it had complexities of hate of another kind and subtly. So this is where we have conflict because both films, again executed musical wise, to perfection. The score, the symphony playing in the background, the lyrics, the dances. Both films did an incredible job. The 2021 version takes much more of a, as opposed to just the 1961 version, that they were very limited, and I believe a lot of what you see, aside from the fact that they did film in what is considered Lincoln Center today, some of it in studios, on lots. And I think the same thing happened with this 2021 version, but they actually did get a good amount of footage in Harlem, in Washington Heights. The subway scene in particular towards the end, that was up here. I remember, because In the Heights and West Side Story was filming simultaneously that summer. It was the summer of 2019. Both trailers of both movies semi conflicting with each other because they're taking up a lot of parking. But I remember stills of, locals posting them of how they had converted the subway to look very much like the subway of that time. And again, because you can't necessarily shoot in that area anymore, it's so congested and, consumed by skyscrapers. And you have to kind of look uptown if you want still that very much that 1950s, 60s feel. Hell, even Boardwalk Empire filmed up here because of the cobblestones that we have at the Jamel Mansion, which, again, all these things you can look up for yourself, but all these things exist. They're historic landmarks that do great for filming. But nonetheless, even so, the subtlety here is of hate is, of course, championing the American experience, the American lens, the Caucasian lens. And to succeed here, you have to erase, simulate, forget about your own language and about your own culture to best live in America. So, and though she's very gun ho, incredibly pleased to be living here as the film goes on, and especially after she loses her lover. Bernardo was played, I think he's of Greek or Italian descent. Don't quote me. But is played by George Chakins, Chakiris. And he, again, if you see the 1961 version, the lines are clean. He was an exceptional dancer. So were everybody who played his backup. But yeah, he wasn't Latino. And when she loses him at the end, and there is a closely related scene to a possible rape of Anita's character, then she quickly switches that mindset. But she had to go through something traumatic for her to automatically be proud of being Puerto Rican and not wanting to assimilate anymore. Um, and who is to say that that was the experience for a lot of Puerto Ricans? So this is where sensitivity comes in. Perhaps their own ignorance of not, and it wasn't something that was encouraged at that time in the 50s. You did what you wanted. Art was art. Art was open to interpretation. But that is no longer. That's why I said time frame. Decades have passed, have expanded, and people, whether good or bad, realize it for the shortcomings that it was back then, and not having that advantage of exploring that particular culture, perhaps flying to Puerto Rico, getting a sense of what that was so that you have more of a broader understanding. It, and I'm sorry, but it ranks true to In the Heights as well. I know Lin-Manuel Miranda claims that he was brought up here, but he was also brought up in a very strict, what I believe and from what I've heard, from his own mouth in interviews, that he came from a strict background, strict upbringing, and so did I. But was he really immersed in the culture of Washington Heights to have given that story its proper love and adulation? I don't necessarily think so. He comes from a political background because of his father. He's well to do, went to private school, so he really wasn't necessarily, living here. School when you're a kid, school's everything. And I don't think I've ever heard him say that he had frequented a number of places. Even the location that he picked for In the Heights, it's notorious for not the greatest of, I'm sorry, and it's my own neighborhood, and I believe I have room to critique it, but it's notorious for illegal activity. And so he picks that street to do the whole bodega thing and whatever, and just, anyway, but that's my perspective, my own point of view on that I can link in the description box, and you can make your own decision on how you see it. When something is so sensitively close to people, it can affect how they will see the art. And that's probably why a lot of Puerto Ricans to this day did not want this movie remade, just because of that sentiment. Like Puerto Rico, that's the overall kind of context. And this is where I believe Steven Spielberg went wrong, because if you're really going to reimagine it, but you can't. Like, I don't know, it's a tug of war in my brain, because again, it is a point in time in that time frame. Perhaps he shouldn't have done it, but he wanted to maybe make it better, was more inclusive, had more actors of who were Puerto Rican or of Puerto Rican descent in the film. He consulted a number of people, but it still translates to the same way of point of view. And even though they changed certain things and it omitted certain things, like even in the opening sequence, the Jets are like this nice, respectable the Jets graffiti on the wall, and the sharks even have like a drawing of a shark with sharp teeth. And I believe one of the Jets in the original 1961 film says sharks stink, or it said the sharks and he spray paints stink. Again, making it seem as if people of color are smell and whatever the case may be, things that perhaps they didn't see at the time when they were filming, how problematic that can be. So those things were taken out, but they still had to show that conflict between these two rival gangs. So there are punches of certain things that they were able to perhaps rework to make it less of a thud, of discriminatory thud, but it's still very much sitting there. And even down to our leading ladies, I love Steven and Kushner, who they got to do the screenplay and to be thoughtful of what they were and what they wanted to inject in this particular film, but it still stays true to the 1961 version, just for the simple fact that Maria's character, and I love her, I think they did pick wisely, just for the simple fact of her vocal ability. I think that she was really great to play Maria, right? I think Rachel Zegler, but she is very on the fair side, and she is playing our virginal character here. Though she does get along, she does actually get it on with Anton, Ansel Elgort, right? That's his actual name, and he plays Tony. But she's still, when they first initially meet with she looks very Snow White, and they did it also in the 1961 film as well. Plush red lips and jet black hair, and this white, beautiful dress, but still very virginal. Seems like she's never been touched. And then Anita, who, like Rita Moreno in the 1961 version, Rita Moreno was slapped on like makeup, dark makeup. So she just most likely did brown face. She did brown face for that era. And now they got the Afro Latina. They didn't have to do brown face on her. Ariana, played by Ariana DeBose, she plays Anita. And they have even also David Alvarez, who plays Bernardo. These are Puerto Rican Afro Latinos. But does that make things better? Because Anita essentially is the more experienced, more kind of loose, if you can say, although she's just sleeping with Bernardo, because of her flamboyant flair and colors and the way she's outspoken, right? That dance sequence is just, it's phenomenal. But she's like, and doing these R's and whatever that make her more experienced than our lead, who's virginal and quote unquote, like, you know, the virgin here because of her lighter complexion. And Ariana, who's darker, isn't the looser experience. You see what I'm saying? Where I'm going here? And then also in the heist, sorry to burst anybody's bubble, the same thing kind of happened. Vanessa, who was the leading lady in that film, we assume she's Dominican, but nobody ever really realizes what she is. She is our lead. I said it in my review that she is the more statuesque, virginal kind of character, even though she has poom poom shorts or whatever the case may be. But she knows how to code switch when she needs to go into corporate America. And even though she's a nail technician, she still has all these hopes and dreams. Tells the guys in the street no because she has big dreams. And then the people who are darker skin tone, who also have speaking roles, were on the looser side. Kuka, who is, I believe, one of the salon ladies. She's gyrating and practically with that leading character, I forget, who's Navi. She's like luring at him and doing all this nonsense. So this is, and I made that clear in my last review as well. Again, I'll link it down below. But again, we see these things near match. And so how have we reimagined certain things if we've kind of kept to the source? A lot of people were complaining about this, like, oh, well, you know, why isn't Ariana even getting the flowers that she deserves? And she does. I loved her in The Prom. If you've seen that movie on Netflix, you got to see it. She's exceptional. She can sing, she can dance. The girl is a triple threat. She was in Hamilton too, originally there, and then I think Ryan Murphy saw her and casted her in The Prom. And I thought she was breathtaking. I think she stole the scenes just with her face and her singing vocal ability as well. But she is essentially still playing the stereotype that we want to stay away from and not continue to perpetuate. The Spitfire, the exotic one, the one that's darker, the one that's more loose and experienced. And that's why, you know, because of these supposed things that she's being known for, characterizes why she almost nearly gets, you know, I don't want to say the word again, but she nearly gets assaulted. So again, yes and no. And I did appreciate that there was more Spanish in this 2021 version.
A boxer and a singer. Despierta de ese sueño que es hora de luchar a ese amar patriótico.